My name is Harmony Dust. Thank you for having me and taking time today. I'm the founder of Treasures, and we are an outreach and support organization for women who have experienced exploitation and trafficking in the commercial sex industry. I myself am a survivor, a lived experience expert, and my experience was coming out of many of the vulnerabilities that so many people who experience exploitation and trafficking have, from a history of poverty, childhood sexual abuse, domestic violence, just so many generational cycles of abuse that were existent in my life and the generations before me that made me susceptible. And I became involved in pimp-controlled exploitation. And after I got out and got some healing on my own, and this was over 25 years ago, number one, there really weren't any resources for women who had gone through what I had gone through. The anti-trafficking movement was teeny tiny, very untalked about. The Trafficking Victims Protection Act had just passed. And, I felt super alone in my own recovery process. And when I got some healing under my belt, I wanted to do something to provide resources to other women who had walked similar paths to the one that I had, and to give them what I wish I had coming out of it. And so 21 years ago, in 2003, I founded Treasures. And so here are some of the things that we do as an organization. We do work with system impacted youth. And then in terms of our offerings, we do 3 virtual support groups a week that women from other agencies can be referred to attend. We have some residential programs throughout the US that will just bring all their residents in, they sit them down, and then they join the Treasures virtual support groups with us as kind of part of the services that they receive in the residential programs. We also have a mentorship for women who want to be paired with a highly trained, heavily vetted mentor that can be available to just meet them where they're at and process with them as they're facing a different circumstances and challenges, as they're looking to find permanent freedom from exploitation and trafficking. For women who want to go a step further and really develop kind of a life plan and engage in some more intentional goal setting, we have a coaching program. And then also for women who are involved in our program, we have a few different forms of emergency financial assistance. As you probably know, many women who are coming out of exploitation and trafficking are experiencing poverty, unstable housing, and just a lot of challenges in that area. And some of them might be like $300 away from homelessness. And so if a woman is engaging in the program and finds herself in an emergency financial situation where we can do something financially to help support so that she can maintain stable housing or maintain transportation for her employment, then we have a fund to be able to do that for her. We also have another financial aid program that's more of an economic empowerment model. Currently, that program is full. And we also do a service provider training. So we have a digital training that's accessible online to allies and service providers in this field that just trains on everything from understanding the psychological chains that keep people trapped in exploitation and trafficking, looking at why women don't leave, also looking at best practices for how to really effectively support them and help them live healthy and flourishing lives. So all of that can be found at imaTreasure.com. This QR code here links directly to a page on our website where women can request services from Treasures, request a care package, and request more information about what we have available to them. So you're welcome to, use that, scan that. Okay, so what we're going to be really talking about today is a new recovery curriculum that we just launched that I'm so excited about. It's been years in the making. The entire series is called Live Free, and we just released volume 1 of what will be a 3 or 4 part series. And the entire series, I'm going to go into some of the key principles about it, but essentially is based on the stages of change. And I really saw a service gap for recovery resources to address people who may not quite be ready for change, and maybe some of the more intensive, recovery curriculums might be too much for them. And so this curriculum was developed in order to kind of meet that need. I should have taken pictures of the inside of it. It's very aesthetically beautiful. It's very interactive with lots of visuals and places where women can interact and fill out charts and diagrams and do coloring. So it's designed to be super interactive. We also have a facilitator's guide available to help people figure out how to best implement the Free to Thrive curriculum in their context. So a couple of things about Free to Thrive. Number one, it is survivor developed. I myself wrote it. It was also content edited by another survivor that's on our team. And so that's super important because, there's a saying in the field, nothing about survivors without survivors. And I do think it's important to have that kind of lived experience going into the resources that we're offering. The other thing about it is that it's trauma informed. Treasures as an organization is trauma informed. And what that means is, the services that we offer, the approaches that we take are all with the, trauma in mind, and the way trauma is impacting the people that we serve and how we can best go about being trauma sensitive in our approaches and our programs and in our services. And in our responses when we see trauma playing a role in some of their, patterns and interactions. The entire curriculum is based on 2 key principles, and that's what we're going to kind of spend the bulk of the time here talking about today. The first one, as I mentioned, is stages of change. And it's a model that's frequently used in recovery programs that are geared towards those who have experienced exploitation and trafficking, because it's a very effective model. I'm a social worker. I have an MSW from UCLA, and one of the main principles of social work is meeting people where they're at. And so Treasures as an organization definitely adapts that philosophy for the work that we do, and really endorses that as a really important kind of foundational principle to build our services off of. And for those of us that are in the field providing any kind of direct services, it's so important that we meet people where they're at. And this is very, very powerful. It's very effective. And at the same time, in order to meet someone where they're at, we have to know where they're at. We have to be able to identify where they're at. And the stages of change model gives us a tool to be able to really kind of assess that. So I'm going to go section by section, but the first stage in the stages of change model, and also there'll be time for Q&A afterwards. So if you have questions, jot them down. I think maybe even put them in the Q&A in the, in the Zoom, and we'll make sure to get to them. But the first stage is pre-contemplation. And this is basically, they're not really thinking about changing at all. They're not considering it at all. I see this a lot when we're working with youth, for example, in some of the detention centers that we work in, or some of the retreats that we do with system-involved youth, or youth who have been identified as CSEC. A lot of times they don't see themselves necessarily as victims. They often will have trauma bonds with their traffickers, and they're not really thinking about leaving the life or engaging in any kind of recovery process. So that's known as pre-contemplation. The next stage in the stages of change model is contemplation. This is when a person begins to think about changing, but they're still not quite ready yet. In contemplation, there's still a lot of ambivalence about change. They might think, I see a need for it, but in general, the cons of changing tend to outweigh the pros. They still kind of really have one foot married to the idea of not changing, but they're starting to think about it. They're starting to explore it. The next stage is preparation. This is when someone, says, okay, I actually think I really do need to make a change. I think I do need to leave my exploiter, the life, whatever the situation may be. And this is when things like a safety plan would become really important, or helping them really prepare so that they can set themselves up for success when they do finally make that leap and decide to make a change. And I'm using this model in the context of exploitation and trafficking, but this is a behavioral change model that really is relevant to any kind of change that we as humans, might find ourselves contemplating. Anytime we want to make a change in our life, we kind of go through these stages. Maybe we're not thinking about it. We don't even see that whatever it is a problem. Maybe it's a relationship, a behavioral pattern, whatever it is. And then at some point we start thinking, oh, wait, maybe this is problematic. Maybe I should change this, but it's too overwhelming. I can't really think about it. I'm not really ready for it. And then we get to a point where it's like, you know what? I got to start taking some action to make some preparations because I'm starting to feel ready for this change, right? So we all kind of go through that. And then the next stage is action. This is when a person begins actually implementing and making the changes. The next is maintenance. A person in maintenance has made whatever change that is within the past 6 months. And now their key kind of objective is to maintain those changes that they've made. And for those that have experienced exploitation and trafficking, this can be a time where they really need to kind of like reinforce their foundations, remember why it is they walked away from those situations. It's a time where it's very normal to be tempted to return to the previous situations of exploitation for various reasons. You know, maybe it's for financial reasons. Maybe it's because of the trauma bonds they had with the people that were exploiting them. Maybe it's because the truth is that healing and recovery work is really hard, right? And so this is a period of time where people are maintaining the change, but they might also be struggling with, again, some of that kind of ambivalence or that temptation to return to previous relationships and patterns. And then the next, let me see, whoops, what happened? Let's see. Oh, weird. I don't know what's happening here. Okay. So here the piece of the pie that's included is relapse or recycle. And this is because it's super important to recognize that in the addiction community, they call it relapse, but in the context of leaving exploitation and trafficking, it's known as recycling. It's very common for someone to walk away from their situation of exploitation and trafficking, and then perhaps to return to it, and then to walk away again and to return to it. So it's important for us to recognize that is a normal part of the recovery process for many people, and also to recognize that it doesn't undo the work, the contemplation, the preparation, and all that has already been done in the past, and to kind of normalize that as a normal part of the process. And then the final place in the stages of change would be stabilization, an improved, stable lifestyle. You know, you've maintained that change, you've stayed out for more than 6 months, and now it's really about, continuing to build on that stable lifestyle. And again, meeting people where they are at is a very important part of supporting people effectively. And so in order to do that, it's important for us to be able to recognize where is someone on this stage of change chart. So when we're working with someone, if we're hearing a lot of like, I'm fine, no, I don't see what the big deal is, or he loves me, or, he's my boyfriend, he's the only one who is, taking care of me, then we're recognizing, oh, this person is in pre-contemplation, right? So the way we approach them is going to vary, and it's going to be adjusted based on where they're at, which is why I'm so excited about the Free to Thrive curriculum, because it's the only curriculum that I'm aware of that is specifically designed to support people who are in pre-contemplation and contemplation, because of the way I developed it to be very, very gentle, very much about helping people start to explore their dreams and their desires. Because one of the things that people in stages of change need when they're in contemplation and pre-contemplation is an opportunity to explore ambivalence in a very neutral, non-judgmental way, and also to begin to develop discrepancies is what they call it. So looking at the ways in which their dreams and goals and desires for their future may not be in alignment with their current circumstances. And as people in a very safe, non-judgmental environment are able to begin to identify those discrepancies and see where there's inconsistency in their dreams and their current life, they begin to come to a place where maybe they would consider preparation and action, and maybe they would consider making changes. So what people who are in contemplation and pre-contemplation need is a safe place to explore their doubts and ambivalence, and also the opportunity to begin to develop those discrepancies so that they can start to explore the idea of change. The next thing that the Free to Thrive curriculum is based around are the 7 C's of resilience. Resilience is so important in helping people make lasting changes, engage in healing and recovery, overcome their past hurts and trauma. So the more we can do to help build resilience in the people we serve, the more equipped they will be to move towards a healthy and flourishing life. And so there's a model called the 7 C's of resilience. And each section of the Free to Thrive curriculum is helps foster a different area of resilience. And so we'll just go through briefly some of those areas of resilience. The first one is competence. People need to be equipped with skills to know that they can handle situations effectively. This is really important. So many people who have experienced chronic trauma and experienced exploitation and trafficking can develop what's known as learned helplessness, a sense that no matter what they do, they can't really positively affect the outcomes and the trajectory of their life. So it's so important that we help people, really gain an internal locus of control and begin to recognize that they actually do have the power and the ability to make choices in their lives that will impact outcomes. And so building that sense of competence in their ability to handle situations effectively is a key part of resilience building. Another one is confidence, the belief in one's abilities and capabilities. There are, lots of places in the Free to Thrive curriculum where we're helping women participants identify their strengths and really begin to lean into those strengths and capabilities and abilities that they already have that have already helped them overcome so much and come this far in life, and really tapping into what those strengths and abilities are so that they can utilize them to help propel them closer to their dreams and the life and future that they want. The next is connection, a sense of closeness with and attachment to others. Many people who are exploited through coercive tactics are, one of the types of trafficking is, one of the types of exploiters is known as like the Romeo pimp. And this is a person who exploits the desire for relationship and connection in order to traffic and coerce people. People in, youth, young people are especially susceptible to this, but essentially what they're preying on is the innate need that all of us have for a sense of connection and relationship, and they use that to exploit. But in terms of recovery and health, it is so important to equip and empower the people that we serve so that they can develop healthy connections and a sense of healthy closeness and attachment to other people. And this is going to go a long way into making them resilient and to protecting them from re-exploitation. Another one is character. It's a fundamental sense of right and wrong and being in touch with your values. So there are sections of Free to Thrive that foster that. Contribution, a sense that we can make the world a better place. This can be so powerful. I know for me, one of the key moments in my recovery that was very empowering and propelled me and motivated me was the idea that I could not only overcome my past, but I could use the pain from my past to help encourage and support and inspire other people. And that I had a sense of contribution, like that the very things that, felt like they were meant to destroy me or take me out or made me even think I might be disqualified from a life of flourishing and purpose, the discovery and discovery and recognition, those very things, those very traumas and pains that I overcame, what could be part of my purpose, was very, very empowering. And the idea that I could make a positive impact in the world was also one of the things that was a huge motivating factor for me in my recovery process. The other one is coping, our ability to manage and respond to stress. The Free to Thrive curriculum teaches, there's a section on grounding and giving women tools to really begin to identify ways that they can regulate their nervous system so that they can get better at increasing their window of tolerance and managing and responding to stress. Another thing we have in there is throughout the, throughout the workbook, women are given an opportunity to pause and think about what they feel and then think about what they may need based on what they feel. But because this is a trauma-informed workbook, we also recognize that tapping into feelings might be too much for some people. So they do have the option to opt out of naming those feelings. So we have a whole chart for them to kind of like name their feelings and figure out what they need. But if they're just not ready for that, they can skip to the next section and do thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways, because for some people, that might be all that feels safe for them to access. So we do have that available to them. The other one, control, the belief that we can make choices that will impact outcomes in our life. Again, this is very connected to the concept of locus of control, which we were talking about earlier. And again, when people have experienced chronic victimization, it's so easy to fall into a sense of learned helplessness, in a sense that outside people and circumstances are responsible for the outcomes in our life, which is an external locus of control, versus recognizing like, oh, I actually have an internal locus of control and I can make choices that impact my future. The curriculum can be used in support group settings, in mentoring relationships, in coaching relationships, or even in clinical case management when that feels appropriate. And the facilitator's guide walks facilitators and mentors through, number one, what are some of the impacts of complex sexual trauma? What are some of the impacts of trafficking and exploitation specifically? What are the challenges that the population that we serve are facing? And then specifically how you can utilize the curriculum to support and empower the people that you serve. And this here is where you can order it. We also have bulk rates available for those that might be working with larger groups or wanted to implement it in a support group setting. But that essentially is Free to Thrive in a nutshell. I am open to questions, thoughts, feedback, any and all of it.
Well, I can say as a survivor, that is beautifully done. And you're right. I don't think that there is a place in a curriculum that's like starts where it's gauging the level of the survivor and to seek of the level of help that they need.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm so excited about that aspect of it.
I don't know if you remember me. This is going to be a crazy story. I met you through
oh my gosh. Okay. When I saw your face on here, I was like, I feel like I know her.
You came to my church.
Yeah.
And I was in the club working, and I was like, I need a lip gloss. And someone said, oh, these girls are out there handing out these bags. And I was like, huh? And I took the lip gloss out. And I kid you not, you were out there handing out your goodie bags of lip gloss. And I dropped to my knees and crawled to the DJ and was like, I can't go on.
Are you kidding me?
No, and you were like one of the first reasons of me exiting that life.
Oh my gosh, that is so wow. Thank you for sharing that beautiful story.
To see you doing this, it's still going, still strong. So this curriculum is very beautiful, very well put.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And thank you again for sharing that story. That's so encouraging to my heart. I knew you looked familiar. I couldn't pin it, but I was like, gosh, I know her.
It is I.
Wild. I love it. Love those full circle moments.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I just want to say that I find your program revolutionary, and the approach, like Mariah had mentioned, about helping victims who might not realize that they're victims themselves yet and might not be ready to necessarily leave that life, particularly for the emotional pressures and the financial pressures. And a lot of victims, they don't know where their next meal is going to come from or where they're going to be sleeping that night. So completely removing themselves from that life can be quite scary and traumatic in itself, as you know. So I really appreciate that approach within that work, because I feel it's easy. It hits potential victims where it needs to hit. And I am completely just moved by Mariah's story that she's very kindly shared, and the full circle moment. And I'm very inspired myself, and I would love to work in the future together.
Oh, wow. I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you for that feedback and that encouragement. And yeah, we do have volunteer opportunities. We have our outreach team, that still goes out into the clubs, and we have our mentoring team. So if you're interested in any of those volunteer opportunities, there's an application at the very bottom of our website at iamatreasure.com.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
You can click on Get Involved. There's also a Get Involved that has that link.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So Harmony, what does it take to get somebody to get to the stage where they know they have a problem and now it's time to start preparing to move forward?
Yeah, I mean, there's not one blanket answer. I mean, for sure, some people it is kind of like one of those rock bottom traumatic experiences that might motivate someone. But I really do think that there is incredible power in walking alongside people in a very kind and non-judgmental way. Like the mentorship model that we have in our approach is very much walking alongside people, listening to what their goals and priorities are, not assuming that their number one goal or priority would be to leave the situation of exploitation and trafficking, because there's so many other layers and dynamics that might be going on, but taking those opportunities to meet someone where they're at and building that trust and rapport so that they do feel safe to start to explore ambivalence with you. But if that safety is not there, if there's any sense that you're coming in with an agenda to fix or change them, or that you're just waiting for the right moment to help them change, then that's going to break trust. But
Right.
being super patient and caring for people right where they're at. I mean, the person who changed my life and began that trajectory was just like a college student who took me out to coffee and frozen yogurt, and I had no interest in changing. I was not thinking of leaving my pimp, not even on my radar, but it was through the relationship itself, the way she cared for me, the way she respected me, listened to me, the boundaries that she had in her own life and how she modeled them for me, that helped me to build trust to where I began to very, very slowly allow her the opportunity to speak into my life. And it took time. And sometimes it takes a long time, but it's a process. And another thing, like for treasures, we are very much anti-rescuing language, and we're not here to rescue. And I think that word is very overused in the anti-trafficking movement. And there's these, kind of like fantasies of white horses going in and busting down doors and quote unquote rescuing people. But really at the end of the day, the people we serve are the ones that are going to have to do that hard work. And we're not here to rescue. We're here to empower them because they're going to be the ones doing that hard work. So anyways, I don't know if that helps.
I'm just trying to get ideas of how to push people over the edge of, oh my gosh, I do need help.
Yeah. So that's one of the things in our digital. So obviously we don't have time to go through all of that today, but that's one of the things that we address in our digital training is best practices for providing support to those, we serve, including, utilizing tools like motivational interviewing and how to ask the right questions so that you are helping people move along, but in a pace and in a way that is set by them and is really careful to not push too much. So in our digital trainings, and you can find that information at iamatreasure.com, there's 3 different training tracks. There's one for people who want to also do outreach. And then there's one for allies and service providers. And then there's another one for faith-based allies and service providers. And that training is also designed with all the same best practices, but also helps people figure out how to do this work in a faith setting in a way that is also empowering to our clients and not inadvertently doing or saying things that could be harmful or problematic in the long run in our genuine good intentions of sharing our faith.
Thank you, Harmony.
My pleasure.
So we get the gamut of girls because, first of all, we all know that Long Beach Boulevard is one of the, Scrolls, Blade, whatever you want to call it, very popular place for human trafficking victims as well as clients. So we get the gamut. We get girls that come in and they're just want to so far just sit down. They don't want to talk about anything. Then we get girls that are ready to come out. One girl we came in the other day, her legs were covered with, it looked like burns to me. She said he whipped her, but it looked like he burned her. And anyway, she wanted to get out, then decided to go to New Orleans. So we get the entire gamut of that whole spectrum. So my question is, with this curriculum, which will definitely, I understand, is created for the victim, but in terms of us who are working with them in those stages, this curriculum, would this help us also in
So this
working with
this curriculum is designed for the clients, for the people.
exactly.
Our digital trainings are designed for you, for the service providers. So I just gave you a brief overview of stages of change, but in our digital training, we go in depth into what people need in each stage so that you can support them in a way that's consistent with that stage. We go through how to identify what stage. We go through role playing of how to use motivational interviewing, how to ask questions that help develop discrepancies. So all of those like skill-based, those tools, those best practices, those are available in our digital training. And so if you go to IamAtreasure.com and just click on training, you'll find all the information there. We also have organizational rates. So we have it where you can buy a package just for an individual and go through it, but also if you wanted to go through it with other members of your organization, I think there's like a 10-pack on there type thing.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
No question, but I would also like to acknowledge how important these programs are. Thank you for your presentation and continuing to help advocate and support individuals Thank you for your continued presentation and continuing to help advocate and support individuals who are in these situations.
My pleasure. Thank you.
April said, thank you for sharing. I'm super excited for this curriculum and already working on a few collaborative partnerships with other survivor leaders. Thank you and have a wonderful and blessed day.
Awesome.
April is also a survivor as well.
Mhm.
Mary White said, excellent presentation. Anyone else? Do we have any more questions, you guys? This was very informative. I feel like this would be something that everybody who's in this line, who's on the forefront working with survivors could potentially need a training on.
Thank you. I also think, to answer your question, Deatra, I think, is that how you say your name? Deatra?
Yeah.
Okay. It could also just be helpful to have on hand this curriculum so that if someone, like you mentioned, walks in and maybe you could go through one of the activities with her or something like that, it could be utilized in that way, in a drop-in center setting.